What is up, my friends? Welcome into Flippin' Bats, where we got a lot to talk about this week. The Astros and the Mariners out in the AL West are battling it out over the weekend. We got the Atlanta Braves not playing good baseball. We're going to talk Tarik Skubal and what the Detroit Tigers should do with the best pitcher in the game of baseball. Do they trade him? Do they go get as much for him as possible? Do they hold on to him? Going to talk all about that. It is the first episode of the week, meaning we have power rankings as well. But over the weekend, big weekend in baseball, Hall of Fame weekend. Our guy, John Smoltz, was up there on stage. All the Hall of Famers, all the living Hall of Famers are there in attendance. He was there. Watched Adrian Beltre get inducted, Jim Leland, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton. If you haven't seen the Jim Leland speech, I knew he would do this. Jim Leland is an absolute legend, but that guy, full of energy and not afraid to be the fierce leader of a team. But man, does he have emotion, and you see it all the time when he was a manager, and we saw it during his Hall of Fame speech when he was just brought to tears during his speech about the game of baseball. And that man, Jim Leland, just loves the game of baseball. So if you haven't seen his speech, go watch it. But congratulations to him, to the other names I just mentioned: Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, Adrian Beltre. Absolute legends. Good Hall of Fame class. Good Hall of Fame class this year. So they are officially inducted into Cooperstown. We're going to do soon. We should do what next year's class and the ballot looks like, and who should get in and who might not get in. But Billy Wagner, let him in. I can tell you that already. All right, let's start. Let's start this show with Astros, Mariners over the weekend. Astros taking the series and getting to, hear me out, first place in the AL West. Man, oh man. I'm not saying the Astros are going to win the division, but boy, when they do I have a lot of receipts. I was made to be a fool for saying the Astros were fine. The Astros are fine. Where's the worry meter at? I don't know, a 3, a 4. Never got to a 5. They're fine. Why did I say that? Because they're the only team in American League history to reach 7 straight LCS appearances. And this team is largely the same. So was it pretty all year long? No. In fact, before May 9th, they were 12-24. Fourth worst in all of baseball, second worst in the American League, second worst in the AL. That's terrible. 4.39 runs per game, which was 16th in Major League Baseball, 5.05 ERA. That's the big one. They had a 5.05 ERA, 28th in MLB, worst in the American League. And from that day on, May 9th on, until as we sit here today in the middle, I guess, end of July, 40-23, best in all of Major League Baseball. No other team has more than 37 wins. So, in fact, not only best in Major League Baseball, by far the best team in Major League Baseball since May 9th. 4.92 runs per game, which is fourth best in baseball, third in the American League. 3.40 team ERA, second best in all of baseball, best in the American League. That is where it has all turned around for the Houston Astros in the pitching rotation department. Rotation, bullpen has finally gotten better. We knew that would come along. And now here they are. I was asked, when are you going to worry about the Astros? When you're a fool to not be worrying about them. They look awful. And I said, I'll worry if they're 10 games out of a playoff spot at the All-Star break. Well, here we are at the All-Star break. And one day after the All-Star break, the Houston Astros were in first place in the American League West. First place. The Houston Astros are inevitable. I know I've continued to say it. I've said it for years now, but it's true. And at this point, if you're not expecting them to turn it around, if you weren't, then you're just oblivious to what they've been doing over the last few years. This team is largely the same. The rotation had some issues, got a little healthier, still has some issues. They need help. They're going to have to go address some things at the trade deadline. But they weren't a bad baseball team. They were always going to turn it around. And it'll lead me to say it again. The Houston Astros are inevitable. And here they are in first place. The Mariners now in second place. Technically, they're tied in the division, but by mere percentage points as we speak. on at the beginning of this week. So on Monday, the Astros are percentage points ahead of the Mariners, but essentially tied at the top of the division. Man, the Mariners have issues. They're hitting 218 as a team. And in case you're wondering, that is the worst in all of baseball. This team that is tied atop a division and has been leading the American League West all year long has the worst hitting in all of baseball. You have the Chicago White Sox, who can't hardly win one game a week, and they have a better team batting average than the Seattle Mariners. That's unacceptable, and I blame a lot of this on the front office of the Seattle Mariners. It is so frustrating that this continues to not be addressed. What are you waiting for? The trade deadline? I promise you, at the trade deadline, they're going to be in contention. We knew that a month ago. We knew that a week ago. We know that today, and we'll know it at the end of the month for the trade deadline. What are we waiting for? You know your weakness. You have a rotation in their prime. You have 29 other teams that would love to take that rotation off of your hands. It's arguably the best rotation in baseball. But you have a team that can't put up runs. You have a team that can't hit. You have a team that is in first place and has the single worst team batting average in all of baseball. You struck out 1,000 times before the All-Star break. 1,000 strikeouts before the break. You have to add bats if you want to make the playoffs. Can they get to the playoffs without adding a bat? Man, I can't say for certain yes, but can they do damage in the playoffs without adding? No, they can't. And I don't need you to add much. I don't. That's how good the rotation is. Go get 2 bats, one big one. Maybe if they're sellers, maybe go get a package for the Rays with Isaac Paredes and Randy Arozarena. You need a first baseman. Ty France is not in the big leagues anymore. You option him. You need a first baseman. You need an outfielder. You need lineup depth. Imagine going to put a package together for those two. You have pitching surplus. Go use some of your guys and get what needs to be done right now. The window is now. I'm tired of this, I don't know. It became a joke and a mockery of what the front office said over the offseason of they're trying to win. I forget what the percentage was. I don't know. 57%. Well, over an extended period of time is what they're talking about. Well, if that's not going to put a team out there good enough to win a World Series, which is the goal. The Seattle Mariners rotation is good enough to win the World Series. The offense is the worst in baseball. The offense isn't good enough to make the playoffs. So you put it together and you have a decent baseball team. You add some offense, you have a great team. So let's figure that out, because we've watched this division lead dwindle from close to from 10 games down to 0 in a heartbeat. It happened in a month and a half. And we're still sitting here with that same roster going, that same lineup going out every single night and not doing anything about it. We knew a month ago you needed bats. Go get it done. Get it done now. Why wait? Another week could cost you the season. Why are we waiting? Go make deals. Go make it happen. But here we are, beginning of this new week, end of July, and the Houston Astros, who were over 10 games out of first place a couple of months ago, are now in first place in the AL West. And I told you so. I told you so. It was inevitable. They're really good. They need help. They need to go get a first baseman. I think they'll address that at the trade deadline. And I think they need a rotation piece. In a perfect world, they add rotation and they add first base, and then they're back in the American League Championship Series. So, a team that is not flying high right now, the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are on the struggle bus. Are they in a playoff spot currently? They are. Are they a shoe-in to make the playoffs? They aren't. We've seen their massive stronghold on the NL wildcard race just dwindle away more and more and more. Massive underperformance all around. If you were to tell me They lost Spencer Strider early in the year. I had Spencer Strider winning the NL Cy Young Award this year. I had him striking out over 300 batters this year. If you were to tell me that they're going to lose Spencer Strider and still in late July have the second best pitching in all of baseball according to ERA, I would have told you, man, I got the Phillies winning the World Series this year, but I bet you the Braves are in first place right now. Phillies are going to have to do it again out of the wild card spot. Second best pitching in all of Major League Baseball once Strider goes down. Man, what a team they got. No, it has not been that way. They do have the second best pitching in all of Major League Baseball, according to ERA, but they now only have a 4.5 game lead over the New York Mets in the wild card race. They're in that first spot in the wild card. They're 4 games up there, but that has dwindled down big time. The division lead is nowhere in sight for them. They've watched every team in the wild card race. There's a million teams all right behind them in the National League. We've watched that dwindle away more and more and more. And at this point, man, you just got to look in the mirror and think, well, our pitching's doing what it needs to. Our offense has underperformed across the board. The only spot that hasn't is Marcell Ozuna. But listen to this. At this point last year, compared to at this point this year, listen to what these names are doing OPS wise. Matt Olson last year, 946 OPS. This year, 699. Sean Murphy, 949 OPS. This year, 631. Orlando Arcia, 793. 577 this year. Michael Harris II, 757 last year, 653 this year. Ozzy Albies, who's now hurt, again, 820 last year, 711 this year. Marcell Ozuna's the only one, 760 last year to 972 this year. So there's not only massive underperformance offensively, you now have injury concerns. Big time. Max Fried back on the IL with a forearm injury. Anytime you hear forearm injury for a pitcher, I've said this a million times. Everybody that's listened for an extended period of time has heard me say it. Look, am I saying it's a shoe-in for a long-term injury? No, but anytime you hear that Max Fried is back on the IL with a forearm injury, you get concerned. Any pitcher, forearm injury, really not good. You worry about the UCL. But let's just say it's nothing long-term, and he's just going to be fine and back in those days. You still have Max Fried on the IL now. You have Ozzy Albies with a broken wrist, out 8 weeks. Michael Harris II has been out for months, hoping to be back in August. But obviously, Ronald Acuna Jr., MVP winner last year, massive underperformance this year, hurt now and out the remainder of the year. Spencer Strider, out the remainder of the year, out all season, essentially. The Braves are in trouble. The Atlanta Braves are in trouble. This team is good enough to make the playoffs. I think they will get to the playoffs. But man, I don't believe in them to win in the playoffs right now. They need to add. They need some help. They need some help all around. I mean, there's nothing you can do with the underperformance. What you're Matt Olson. Matt Olson's a guy at first base. You brought in Sean Murphy to be a guy. He was last year. He's not. He wasn't for the second half of last year. Not for this year. Orlando Arcia was phenomenal last year. All-star, 577 OPS this year. That's terrible. Michael Harris II, expected a big jump from him this year. Unfortunately hurt. Ozzy Albies underperformance a little bit. Man, I am concerned about the Atlanta Braves. And if you're a fan of the Atlanta Braves, you should be concerned too. This team, as we sit right now, is not fit to win a World Series. And that should be the goal for this team. They are good enough. They have the talent. They need to add now. They need to figure it out. They did it last time. Last time Ronald Acuna Jr. went down. What'd they do? They added a million pieces at the trade deadline, and all of them fit a certain role and came in clutch in the playoffs. Jock Peterson brought vibes. Eddie Rosario was hot as anything on planet Earth during the playoffs. They're gonna need to piece it together if they're gonna want to get to the playoffs and win in the playoffs. Because this ain't the same Braves team we've seen over the last few years. It's not. They need some help. Onto a team and a player specifically, but a team that is very near and dear to my heart, and a team that has been frustrating to me for honestly since 2016, 2017, the Detroit Tigers. One, finally playing good baseball. Best record in all of baseball in July, by the way. Not a ton of games due to the All-Star break, but best record in all of baseball, ahead of the Houston Astros, who are in second. So the question I've seen floated around a million places on social media, I do think the Tigers are considering it, so it's not a crazy thing to throw out, is do the Tigers trade Tarik Skubal? Should the Tigers trade Tarik Skubal? Here's my answer. If you are the Detroit Tigers, you cannot and should not trade Tarik Skubal. You have a 27-year-old pitcher who is currently, as we speak, the best pitcher in baseball. Do not trade him. Let's start with this. You're not getting Jackson Holliday. You are not going to get Jackson Holliday. So, if you're the Detroit Tigers, who are you looking to get by trading Tarik Skubal? The next Tarik Skubal? What are you looking for? He's the best pitcher in baseball. 27 years old, not a free agent until 2027 in his age 30 season. Last time you traded the face of the franchise as a pitcher, it failed miserably. You traded away Justin Verlander to get Franklin Perez, Daz Cameron, and Jake Rogers. In case you're wondering, in case you're a massive Detroit Tigers fan, you don't know those names. Jake Rogers has been okay. The other names, Franklin Perez was supposed to be the big piece, failed miserably. I don't even need to dive into that trade. Trading away the face of the franchise, Justin Verlander, blew up in your face miserably and set the franchise back a decade. And that's not to be dramatic. This trade happened in 2017. It set the franchise back a decade. You failed everywhere on that. This team isn't that far from being good. Tarik Skubal, best pitcher in baseball. Pitching rotation, really good, really fun. A lot of good pieces. Playoff caliber rotation. You missed miserably on Javi Baez. You got to figure out that situation. But offensively is where this team is lacking. So I don't think you trade away the best pitcher in baseball. I think the owner of this team, the younger Ilitch, needs to step up and spend some money. Chris Ilitch, spend some money on this team. Mike Ilitch, rest in peace, gave everything to this team. Spent on this team. Where money needed to be spent, money was spent. It doesn't feel like the case with Chris Ilitch. It's just not. It's just not. He does not run this team the way that his dad did. It always felt like, and there's no better example than when Mike Ilitch paid and brought in Pudge Rodriguez. The team was awful. It was the worst team in baseball, one of the worst teams of all time. You go and bring in Pudge, you pay for him, and it turns it all around. Another free agent wants to sign. More free agents wants to join with Ivan Rodriguez, an all-time great. Next thing you know, everybody's thinking, oh my God, cool things are happening in the AL Central with the Tigers. I want to be a part of that. Then Justin comes up and it all clicks. Well, guess what? You have Tarik Skubal coming up, and you have an ownership that's not willing to spend around him. It's saying, "Oh, we need to see performance before we buy in with this team." That's not how it works. You gotta commit. You gotta commit to buying in. Add some offense. Don't go the cheapskate route. Don't wait for the team to perform and then add pieces around them. Be the reason that the team does perform. It gets frustrating. They're not that far away from being a winning team and a winning organization. Best team in July. Best record in all of baseball in July, ahead of the Houston Astros. But again, same conversation we're able to have with the Seattle Mariners. We know the issue. Their offense stinks. There's pieces, but by and large, it stinks. Go add a big bat this offseason. I'm not saying do it at the trade deadline. Go bring in a few offensive pieces. I'm tired of seeing the offseason come around and adding pieces. And again, I don't want to discredit anybody. A lot of these moves that I'm about to mention, I liked from the Tigers' perspective. It adds depth in a lineup. Gio Urshela, Mark Canha. But those aren't the moves that make you a winning organization. Go make those moves. Go spend the money. A couple off seasons ago, everyone in the world wanted Carlos Correa to go. Not all Tigers fans. Carlos Correa, go get your guy. Go pay him that big contract. We didn't do it, and you went and got Javi Baez instead, and that has failed miserably. And Carlos Correa is an all-star this year. I don't know. It gets frustrating. And I went down a rabbit hole that I didn't think I was going to go down. But back to the point, you cannot and should not trade Tarik Skubal. The Tigers currently have scouts for a few days now, have had scouts following the Norfolk Tides, the AAA team for the Baltimore Orioles. If you were going to trade, again, my opinion is don't do it. If you're going to, head straight to the Baltimore Orioles and see what you can get. The Baltimore Orioles there in AAA have Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, Connor Norby, Kyle Stowers. That's who they're looking at. You're not getting Jackson Holliday. I don't think you should trade away the best pitcher in baseball, sitting there with a 2.41 ERA, 10-3 record. He has 140 strikeouts this year in 116 innings compared to only 21 walks. You have a left-handed pitcher that's 27 years old, entering his prime, throwing 100 miles an hour. This is your guy. This is the guy you build around. I'll end this conversation with this. Why are you trading Tarik Skubal? You're only going to go out looking for the next Tarik Skubal. Keep him. Go out in the offseason and buy offensively. Add the right pieces, the big pieces. Go do it. But I just don't know if I believe in the current ownership. I don't know if Chris Ilitch is built that way to do it. We will see. But do not trade Tarik Skubal. Just don't do it. First episode of the week, meaning Power Rankings time. They come out every Monday. We talk about them every Tuesday. If you haven't seen them, they come out on Twitter, on Instagram, and then we talk about them here on Tuesday. So if you don't see them, we'll talk about them here. We're gonna start at number 10. Still hanging on, but barely. They are almost out of the top 10. The Atlanta Braves down one spot from there where they were last week. They lost 2 games in a row to end the week. Entering this new week, lost 2 in a row to the Cardinals. 5-5 in their last 10 games. Just not pretty. Not pretty for the Atlanta Braves lately. Massive underperformance everywhere you look. Rotation really good. Offense has been really, really bad. So another week of underperformance for the Atlanta Braves, and they are going to be outside of the top 10. It was a struggle. There are definitely teams. And I hear you. If you're out there saying, how can you put them in over, and maybe we'll come back to this because I don't want to ruin the rest of the top 10. But I hear you. The Braves are almost out of the top 10 this week, but they are now holding on at number 10, down 1 spot from number 9 last week. Up to number 9, not ranked last week, the St. Louis Cardinals. 52-47, beat the Atlanta Braves on a weekend series. Huge series to start the second half. They've been one of the hotter teams in baseball for a couple months. You see them there now in the NL Central making some noise. They're in a wild card spot now in the National League. This team, man, they deserve a lot of credit. Really bad last year. Went and added a rotation that is old. But that offense is good. It just underperformed last year. I was a believer in them last year. Looked like a fool. And here they are this year, playing much better. Deserve a lot of credit. They're here at number 9. At number 8, best team in baseball since May 9th. The single best team in baseball since May 9th. Second best team in all of baseball in the month of July, the Houston Astros, not ranked last week, back in the top 10 all the way up to number 8. They are percentage points wise in first place in the AL West. Massive series against the Seattle Mariners to start the second half of the year. And man, it was just, I talked about it from a Mariners perspective, really frustrating. But you have this series, second half of the season, getting underway. You have the Houston Astros breathing down your neck, and you're still trotting out an offense that has the worst batting average in all of baseball. Unacceptable for that front office to be doing this. But the Astros take care of business, winning that series, lose the game on Sunday to get back to a tie in the AL West. Yordan Alvarez rocking his shirt, Air Jordan, with the cycle on Sunday. The Astros are clicking. The Astros are clicking. Look for them to add at the deadline. They're going to add a first baseman, in my opinion. They've said as much. I think they need to add a rotation piece as well. But this team is back to firing on all cylinders. At number 8, the Houston Astros. The Astros are inevitable. At number 7, the Minnesota Twins, down one spot, gets swept by the Brew Crew to start the second half of the year. Not a good look there. Really good team, looking good in the AL Central, but just a tough few games to start the second half. So not a ton of games to go off of with these power rankings. Obviously, came out with them on last Monday, but it was the All-Star break. So really only 3 games, only a couple games for the Twins to start the second half. New York Yankees at number 6, down 2 spots, 4-6 in their last 10. Offense really struggling, really struggling. Luis Severino of the New York Mets was asked about not being able to pitch against the Yankees this year. It just wasn't lining up for him, and talked about a group chat that he's in with his old teammates over there with the Yankees, and how they said, "Oh, you're scared to face us." And his response was, "No, I'm not. You really only have 2 good hitters." And take that in for a second. I mean, obviously with the injury to Giancarlo Stanton and the injuries they're dealing with, the New York Yankees really do only have 2 good hitters right now. Anthony Volpe on Monday hit his first home run for the Yanks since May 16th. That's over 2 months. Over 2 months without a homer for Anthony Volpe. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge are to be feared anywhere they go at all times. Really, really good. Best 1-2 punch in the game of baseball. But other than that, this Yankees lineup is not very scary right now, and they have certainly been struggling. So slid them down 2 spots to number 6, entering the top 5. To start the top 5, the Milwaukee Brewers up 2 spots, swept the Twins. Twins were playing good baseball, big weekend series. Brewers with a statement series. Jackson Chourio leading all rookies in WAR over the last couple of months. So a slower start to the year for him, but the young rookie phenom who's barely in his 20s has really turned it around and been really good. He is going to be a stud for the Brewers, has been huge for them this year, especially over the last couple months. So Brewers at number 5, starting the top 5, up 2 spots. The Cleveland Guardians at number 4, down a spot. Just lost the series to the Padres to start the second half. 3-7 in their last 10 games. The Guardians are really good. They're a good baseball team, but they are struggling right now. So I slid them down a spot, because at number 3, jumping back up 2 spots, finally starting to click and play much better baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers swept the Boston Red Sox to start the second half of the year. A really good series for them. Freddie Freeman raking. Shohei Ohtani hitting an absolute tank. Over 470 feet, almost out of Dodger Stadium altogether. I was out at Dodger Stadium a couple weeks ago doing a thing for NHK, which is a massive news station in Japan, and going around all the stadiums, looking at all the plaques they have out there of everybody that hit the ball over. It's basically over that little overhang they have in the outfield. Going over all those, there's 4 people that have done it, one twice. Willie Stargell. But while I was doing it, I thought that it will not be long until Shohei Ohtani hits a ball out of the stadium over the overhang, and just an absolute tank on Sunday for Shohei Ohtani. So the Dodgers are rolling up 2 spots. Great start to the second half for them. Very talented. They do need help at the trade deadline. A lot of teams need help at the trade deadline, but the Dodgers really need help. Rotation-wise, a lot of question marks that they're dealing with. A lot of injuries, a lot of concerns, a lot of hoping and fingers crossed that they get starters to come back. Lineup depth issues. They could address a few things, but they are a very good team. They're back up into the top 3 after sliding out for a little while. At number 2, the Baltimore Orioles staying put, not playing great baseball right now, but really everyone around them, obviously the teams that were around them or that I believe could potentially have a better roster and be ahead of them. Dodgers creeping back up on them. They've really closed that gap. Yankees really playing poor baseball. I believe the Orioles are better than the Guardians. I believe the Orioles are better than the Brewers, who are both playing good baseball. So I kept the Orioles here at number 2. Big believer in this team. Have them in the World Series from the American League side. Have since day 1 of the season. I still believe that to be the case. Very, very, very interested. They are, to me, the most interesting team of what they do at the deadline. Why are they the most interesting? Because they have more pieces than you could possibly want in the minor leagues, and it is time to cash in. Are they able to go get Tarik Skubal? I don't know. I don't think the Tigers should trade him, but that's the kind of move that they have the ability to make, and that could win them a World Series, is going to add a massive, massive arm, or going to add a massive bullpen piece and a Mason Miller. Do they do that? I don't know, but we'll see what they do. To me, they're the most interesting team at the trade deadline. Not playing their best baseball right now, but kept them put at number 2. And the clear number 1 team in baseball to me, my World Series winner, the Philadelphia Phillies. Still playing good baseball. Best team in baseball all around. Not a great start to the second half of the year. But phenomenal baseball team all around. Trey Turner has been fantastic for them this year. Finally got Bryce Harper back. Kyle Schwarber back. Rotations elite. This team, the Philadelphia Phillies, is clearly, in my opinion, a good gap right now from 1 to 2. The Philadelphia Phillies are clearly the best team in baseball. I've had them winning the World Series since day one. This is just a little bit of a victory lap. Let me have it here for a second, having the Phillies and Orioles at 1 and 2 and having the Phillies over the Orioles in the World Series. But with that aside, right now, the clear best team in all of baseball, and rounding out my top 10 at number 1 is the Philadelphia Phillies. So I go Atlanta Braves at 10, Cardinals at 9, Astros at 8, Twins, Yankees, Brewers rounding out or starting the top 5 at 5, Guardians, Dodgers at 3, Orioles at 2, and Phillies at the number 1 spot in these power rankings. So now that I'm done with those, I can talk about it for a second. I almost scat. Almost scat the Braves out of the top 10. Red Sox are there. Kansas City Royals for me were a big one. Royals winning on a winning streak to start the second half, 3 in a row. Hadn't played great baseball before that. I really did go back and forth. Obviously, with the Red Sox getting swept to start the second half by the Dodgers, that's one thing. So that was a little bit. They're good. They were a discussion for me at number 10. The Royals were a tough one. The Royals and the Braves, to me, are neck and neck. I am still not out on this Atlanta Braves team, if I'm being fully honest. The offense won't underperform all year long, all around. If they can keep the pitching as good as it has been, Matt Olson's going to turn it around. Sean Murphy will get better. Orlando Arcia has to get better. A 577 OPS is way under league average. That has to get figured out. Michael Harris II due back in August. That's going to be huge for them. Ozzie Albies injury, Ozuna. So this offense has to turn it around. I believe they will. I'm a believer in the Atlanta Braves. I think their division run in the NL East is done. They're not going to beat the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East. But I do think they can get into the playoffs. I think they need some help. So I kept the Braves for at least one more week at number 10 in my power rankings. But fun show to start the week. Our guy John Smoltz is back from the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he'll be back on Saturdays. A little fun episode last week, the All-Star Game special. If you haven't listened to that, go check out the All-Star Game special. Instead of doing Saturday with Smoltz, we talked to Smoltz earlier in the week, brought him in on the Thursday show, talked everything about the All-Star Game and all about that, and just a really fun episode. So if you missed it, go back and listen to it. It's the episode before this one. But this is a lot of fun. Baseball's back. That Wednesday and Thursday after the All-Star break is truly just a nightmare. That is not a lot of fun to wake up and see no baseball on the schedule. But we're back. Smoltz will be back on Saturday. A lot to discuss this week. Appreciate you all for listening, as always. Make sure you're subscribed and following wherever you listen to the podcast. It really does help. Leave a comment or a review as well. That really does help as well, and it's always appreciated. Love you guys so much. Make sure you can watch everything on YouTube as well. The Flippin' Bats Pod YouTube. We're on all social media as well, so give us a follow there. But really appreciate it. And until Saturday with Smoltz, my friends, find your bat and flip it. Peace.